You may have just picked up your first Justice League title, or maybe you've just finished watching the Snyder Cut and there's only one question that's on your mind. Who is the Martian Manhunter? Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. And it's time for another episode of Who Is, a series that is built for people who've just realised that a character exists but you can't really be bothered to go and look on Wikipedia. Well, don't worry, because I've copy and pasted all the information that you may need, and we've already covered Judge Dredd, we've already covered Captain Britain, and now with the upcoming release of the Snyder Cut, I thought it'd be a good time to take a look at the Martian Manhunter. Yes, we're talking about the green alien that's been a key figure of the DC universe for a number of decades now. However, when you think about your main DC characters, you've got your Superman, your Batman, your Wonder Woman, you've even got characters like Green Lantern and the Flash. But considering that the Martian Manhunter's been an integral role for the Justice League, he never really seems to get as much love as the other members. Well, I'm going to try my best to make sure that that ends today, and by the end of this video, hopefully you will know at least something about this character, so that if he appears in a future book, or maybe a future TV show or movie, you can at least understand who that character is. If you're an expert on this character, I'm going to save you a bit of time right now. This video probably isn't going to be for you, because I'm just going to gloss over the history and give you the key facts that you probably need to know. The Martian Manhunter made his first appearance in November 1955 as part of a backup story in Detective Comics issue 225. Written by Joseph Samachison and illustrated by Joe Surter, John Johns was originally brought to Earth by a teleportation beam created by Dr. Saul Erdel. Admittedly, I think there was about 4 names in there and I don't think I pronounced a single one correctly. Although the Martian Manhunter needed to return to his home planet of Mars, the shock of the encounter that he had with Dr. Erdel caused him to die. This meant that the Manhunter was stranded on Earth until it was a time where Martian technology caught up with itself to a point where he could be rescued. And as he had no choice but to wait, he decided to use his powers for good and fought crime, and he also took on the persona of John Jones, which eventually led to him becoming one of the biggest stars in all of UFC. Hold on a sec, different guy. After his introduction, the Martian Manhunter was often used as a fill-in for Superman when DC didn't want to overuse the Man of Steel. So he often appeared in the Justice League, but there wasn't much development for the character between 1955 and 1969, which was the year when the people of his planet finally got a chance to rescue him. And this lack of development is particularly evident when you look at his powers during those times. And also, for a character whose primary goal was return to his home planet that was pretty much just next door to Earth, he'd often be seen flying across to other planets, which would meant that he'd have to pass Mars in the first place, but he never just thought to pop in at any point. It wasn't until 1984 that the Martian Manhunter became a main figure again within the DC universe. Sure, yes, he'd featured in a handful of appearances between them, but he was often a guest and he was normally on his new home of New Mars. But as the Justice League had an opening due to other members leaving, the Martian Manhunter decided to return to Earth permanently and resume his role within the team. He also resumed his secret identity as John Jones and became a private detective. Then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened a few years later, which meant that a fresh start could take place for the majority of the continuity. As he wasn't that popular of a character before, not much of the Martian Manhunter's backstory was changed, but he had a more defined presence within the Justice League. He became the straight man of the team so that more of the comedic characters could bounce off of him, kind of like Raymond Holt within Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But one thing that they did introduce during this time which became integral for the character was his love for Oreo cookies, which, considering that these didn't become popular in the UK until about 2008, this was quite confusing. I can't speak for the whole country, but a British Martian Manhunter that's got an addiction to Jaffa Cakes sounds much more appealing to me. Actually, that's decided it for me. This is going to be the dumb question of the video. Would you rather have an addiction to Jaffa Cakes or an addiction to Oreos? Leave it in the comment section below, and as difficult as it will be, try and be civil about this. But finally, as he was becoming more popular after his inclusion at the front of the Justice League, he was given his own 4-issue miniseries in 1988. And similar to near enough every other comic that came out in the 80s, it was written by J.M.D. Matthias, and it was set to redefine his origins so that people would have a clear understanding of who exactly this character is, at least until, you know, they changed it yet again. In this series, Dr. Erdel didn't die, and the Martian Manhunter's appearance is apparently the result of some kind of trauma, but also the way that he looks on his home planet might not also be his real appearance, and then also it might not be his real appearance when he's on home. Basically, he's a shapeshifter and we aren't certain if he's ever in his real form. So it's kind of like The Thing from The Thing, but with a box of Oreos. They also made it canon that the Mars that he is from is actually called Malakanandra. Like, come on DC, what was wrong with the name Mars? Was it not sci-fi enough for you? This name for this planet literally looks like when people are on countdown and they've just said consonant too many times, so character that they say Val a lot of times, and then all of a sudden you think that that's going to be a word. However, the main development from this miniseries that my dumb brain can actually comprehend is that it's discovered that John Jones wasn't just displaced out of his own space, but his own time. So it turns out that the family that he had on his home planet have been dead for thousands of years. This added a great level of depth to the character that I feel like later representations tend to forget. Again though, despite the fact that it seemed like he was gaining some kind of popularity, things got weird for the Martian Manhunter, and I'm just going to skim over a few of the events that he was involved in. Like in the 90s, he worked alongside a team that involved a necromancer called Bloodwind, and then later on the Martian Manhunter was fighting Doomsday as part of the Death of Superman arc, and he ended up getting infused with that necromancer. Eventually the two got separated, and this was pretty much chalked up to it being the 90s and this kind of thing just happened. However, it was after the 0 Hour event in the 90s that we were given the Martian Manhunter that we're most familiar with. He was an integral member of Grant Morrison's JLA, and he was even given his own ongoing series, and it was written by John Ostrander. It was also revealed that he had some kind of shape-shifting brother that tried to convince the JLA that the Martian Manhunter had gone on some kind of murder spree, and later on he even tried to overcome his weakness of fire, but this somehow led to him being in a relationship. But in my opinion, the late 90s was the heyday for the Martian Manhunter. Just before we jump into the rest of the video, I'd like to remind you that if you're enjoying it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, make sure you get your paws all over that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a video. As well, I've got Amazon affiliate links down below if you want to treat yourself to a book. There's some here that I definitely recommend, and it does greatly help the channel. As well, with the upcoming release of the Snyder Cut, I'm hoping that this video can be helpful for quite a lot of people, so if you can, please share this video wherever possible, whether it be Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, send it to your next door neighbour. As long as it helps them, then that's all that matters. But you're probably so eager for me to stop plugging this channel and you want to learn more about the Martian Manhunter, so let's just jump back into the video. In the early 2000s, the character was treated pretty much in the same capacity as he was during his first appearances in the 50s. He had very minor roles in two of the bigger events that were going on at DC Comics during that time, so in the build up to Infinite Crisis, the JLA headquarters was attacked and it was presumed that the Martian Manhunter was dead, but it just later turned out that he's being held captive by Alexander Luthor Jr. He then tried to defeat Black Adam, but like any time where I've tried to be funny, he failed and just went home. They then tried to give him a new appearance which was supposed to resemble more of his original Martian form. There was then a brief glimmer of hope when he joined the Outsiders, but this only lasted for a few issues, as once the writers changed during the run, they ended up writing the character out. To then add insult to injury, he was killed during the first issue of Final Crisis, and because there were bigger name characters that died during this event, most people forgot that that even happened. He returned shortly after in the next big event, Blackest Night, where he was resurrected as a Black Lantern, and as a result of this, because he was reborn, he was then given quite an integral role in the spin-off series Brightest Day. Not a lot of people talk about that spin-off event for some reason, so even though it was a good platform for the Martian Manhunter, it still didn't bring him back into the public eye as much as they thought it would. When the New 52 started, the Martian Manhunter debuted once again, but this time alongside Stormwatch. This was a team from the Wildstorm era of comics that before had been separate from the DC universe. They work in a similar way to the Justice League, although the stories can often be a little bit darker and the characters can have a little bit more depth to them, and maybe I should do a Who Is on Stormwatch if that's something that you're interested in. But this only lasted a year before he joined the Amanda Waller-led Justice League, which was pretty much just the Suicide Squad but with heroes, and it was created in case the Justice League ever went off the rails, and the Martian Manhunter was pretty much their equivalent to Superman. And by the time that the New 52 was coming to its end, the Martian Manhunter found himself within the Justice League United. Which brings us nicely up to the present, the Rebirth era, and admittedly the Martian Manhunter is now pretty much a background character. Sure, he did rejoin the Justice League as chairman, but fans of the character are waiting for him to have another peak in popularity, similar to what we saw in the 90s during the era of the JLA and when he had his own ongoing series. I said it before, but in those early appearances, similar to what we saw with Superman when he was first debuting, John's powers weren't clearly defined. But as a Green Martian, he has superhuman strength, which feels weird to say considering the fact that he isn't human to begin with, durability, flight, regenerative cells, shapeshifting, which is pretty much his most known for ability, invisibility, telepathy, telekinesis, and heat vision, amongst a few others. And he also has Martian senses, which means that he's got 9 senses in comparison to a human that's got 5. I legit almost said for a moment there that humans have 6 senses. And even though it doesn't stem from him being a Martian, he does also have a natural aptitude for being a detective, which is why he went into that field of work when he adopted his alter ego. His only major weakness is fire, but even this isn't properly outlined. Sometimes this just boils down to a fear that results in Jon Jones getting anxiety, and then on other times it can be on the other end of that spectrum and mean that his form gets destroyed. And there's other countless interpretations in between. It depends on what the writer wants to do with that. However, despite the Martian Manhunter having quite a tumultuous journey within comics, he has had multiple appearances in different media, such as the Justice League animated series, which I think was either in the late 90s or the early 2000s, and this established that his main type of foe is the Imperium, which is the race that was responsible for attacking his home planet. He was also in the New Frontier animated movie, which makes sense because he had quite a prominent role within the original comic, and he's also appeared in Smallville, Supergirl, The Flash, and the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. It's also been teased now for a while by Zack Snyder that the Martian Manhunter is going to make a full appearance in the director's cut of the Justice League movie that's due out next month. So that's a brief history on the Martian Manhunter, and I think everything that somebody who has no idea who this character is would need to know. If you want to learn a little bit more about him, I can personally recommend the JLA by Grant Morrison series, which he features a lot in, and I'd also recommend DC The New Frontier. A lot of people also talk about the Justice League International run, but admittedly I haven't read too much about that just yet. As well, the Manhunter series that we talked about that went on for about 36 issues does come highly recommended, but admittedly it hasn't been collected too well, so it's quite difficult to get a full run off. I'm just hoping that one day we get that omnibus. But that's the video, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. I'm still trying to figure out my rhythm with these Who Is videos. I know in the previous ones, mega fans of those characters have been annoyed because maybe I didn't mention a certain thing about that character, but admittedly, I'm learning as I go along with this. If you're a Martian Manhunter expert, then good for you. You probably should have made this video instead of me. But this video isn't intended for experts. It's for people who maybe did just pick up an issue with Justice League. Maybe they did just watch the Snyder Cut and they might not know who this character is. And I just hope that any video that I do in this series can make comics a little bit less daunting for people. I will never say that any video that I do in this series is comprehensive, because sometimes I'll leave stuff out that I don't feel is integral to the character, or maybe it's something that's just going to cause more confusion for somebody down the line. So admittedly, this video isn't perfect, but I'm just hoping that someone found it useful or maybe entertaining, because I do genuinely try my best with every single video that I do. So if I did something drastically wrong or incomprehensibly offensive, I would recommend that you try and make your own video. But yeah, that's the next video in the Who Is series. There was a lot of good recommendations on my previous ones for ones that you want to see in future. We got some Conan the Barbarian in there. We even got Spawn as a suggestion. Honestly, throw as many suggestions as you want at me. I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to get to them quickly, but it's something that does excite me to continue doing. I would have loved it if this series existed when I was getting into comics, because there were so many characters that would just appear and I wouldn't have a clue who they are. So I'm just hoping that there's somebody that's in a similar position as what I was 10 years ago, and hopefully this video has helped you a little bit. So leave it in the comments below which characters you want to see in future videos. Again, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like this video, why did you get this far? Subscribe if you're new here. I'm putting out videos all the time, and if you're particularly interested in content based on the Snyder Cut, I am going to be doing a where to start on the Justice League. So make sure that you look out for that one in future. Again, I've got my social media links down below, and also our own Reddit page and my Amazon affiliate links. If you're not irritated by the sound of my own voice already, I've got some other videos that I've uploaded already here. But until the next one, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad, all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.